Good morning, everyone. Our editorial team gave us a lot of topics to talk about today, and I want to jump into one that I think is probably on all of your minds and maybe one of the big things that came out of that conversation, which is how do we think about some of the big risks that we're going to run into as companies become more sustainable, as investors think about how they can focus on transition financing, like our editorial team was just talking about. So thankfully, I have two fantastic experts with me to have that conversation just now, two of our summit advisors. And I've got a list of some risks, so let's tackle through them. I'm sure your insights will be really helpful for our audience here. The first piece I want to talk about is credibility, because I think you can't really do an amazing job of selling your own product or your services if you don't have credibility within the space. So Farrukh, I'd love to hear from you at Schneider Electric. You're thinking both about the sustainability of your own company and your internal operations, but also you work with companies, and you work with a bunch of clients. So how do you think about, how do you make sure your own house is in a good order so that you can go out there and sell your services, advise others?
Thanks. Very good question, actually. And I would start by saying, look, we want to be very humble in our approach and what we do in Schneider Electric. Now, credibility you don't gain in a day or two. It's a marathon. So we have gained this credibility over the last 20 years. We have been working for the last 20 years on this topic, and we still think we are growing and learning every day. So it's a journey that we have been on, and like every sport, you get into it, you achieve some milestone, but we always feel we want to do more, and this is where we are. Now, from that aspect, in the last 20 years, we just got recognized a couple of weeks ago by the Times Magazine to have the top spot as the most sustainable company in the world. We have been doing that for the last few years. We got recognized in 2021 as well. But one of the key aspects that come for us is how we drive this as leadership of the company, how it is driven, the agenda of ESG is driven by our leadership, and then how they take it down into the strategy and then how it is executed within the organization. And I see it's a very, very strong link in how we have been doing that. First of all, we all have we set up ambitious targets. We have this philosophy in our company which says you do well to do good, which means that we have to do well as a company. We have to do the performance. We have to progress. But at the same time, we want to do well as well. So it is not a barter. It is not an exchange, but it is something that we progress on both fronts, which is what we have been doing. Now, we focus on our performance, we focus on our growth of our business, we set ambitious targets, but at the same time, we set ambitious targets on ESG for our company as well, which is critical for us, and we do both at the same time. Now, I know a lot of people think that there's an exchange and it cannot be done both at the same time, but you can see the financial performance, we see it improving over a period of time, and we see our ESG performance improving as well. We have a very comprehensive Schneider Sustainability Index. I think it is called Schneider Sustainability Impact now, because we've become an impact company. And we have a very clear criteria on how do we reach those ambitious targets that we have set for ourselves all across the whole ESG topic. Of course, as a company, like all the companies I'm sure in this room, we have our net zero targets on what we want to do by 2030 and 2040 and 2050. But the key is how do we underpin that with a clear game plan, which is what we have been doing. Lastly, I would also mention that we see that lately, especially in the last 3 years, all the newcomers and all the aspirants who come to us to join the company come to Schneider because they want to join Schneider because the most sustainable company in the world. I can tell you when I joined Schneider 10 years ago, that was not the case. But we see it today that our employee value proposition has improved quite a lot, and that credibility has played a big role in that.
And to your point, Farrukh, about the leadership that's important from a company, I think, Chartsiri, it's really meaningful to have you here and not just people who are in sustainability officer roles, but seeing people who are leading the companies as a CEO or as a president, stepping up and saying this is a business imperative for us and this is something that's very important. So I'm curious, where are you seeing the pull and the pressure there as you think about sustainable investing, responsible lending? Are your customers coming to you and saying we need these products, or are you saying let us lead you, let us tell you what the future looks like?
It's a combination of both. So our customers also come to us with different proposals in different areas, like in investment in renewable energy and so forth. And we provide the support to them, whether in solar energy, in wind power, or energy efficiency improvement. On the other hand, we also work with our customers and propose them better way of improving their efficiency in order to improve on the carbon emission. At the same time, also lead to certain cost saving, which lead them to greater efficiency. So we work closely with our customers in both directions. And as other speakers have said in earlier sessions, increasing regulations and requirements on the global basis are coming. And that is an important part, how to prepare our customers to move forward in preparation to meet all these requirements.
You alluded to my next big area of risk, which is returns. I think that's a big question that we always get on this space is, am I going to sacrifice? Am I sacrificing some returns by promoting this, this focus on sustainability? So tell us how you're not doing that. Tell us what you're not sacrificing. How is ESG and a focus on sustainability helping drive returns for the bank?
Of course, we have to look at the risks and returns and take a right balance between the two. And if plans are done well and in stages, that would also be able to do a combination of the two together. And that's also the advice that we provide to our customers, that to be prepared and plan ahead of time, especially when they make new investments. How can those be in the sustainable areas, at the same time also increase their effectiveness and efficiency? And also, as alluded earlier by other speakers, on the CBAM, so if they are part of the global supply chain, that would also help them to be able to continue to be part of that process and actually increase competitiveness in that matter.
Farrukh, Chartsiri just mentioned global supply chains, and I think that's so top of mind for people after the past couple of years, especially when it comes to mitigating risk. So I would love your thoughts on, what do you think are some of the best tactics you've seen companies think about as they decarbonize their supply chains, particularly as they're trying to minimize global risk?
Absolutely. The landscape of sustainability keeps changing very dramatically. And we see for the last couple of years, supply chain decarbonization is a big topic. Scope 3 is a big topic. And of course, for our operations, that's a big topic as well. More than 90% of our emissions of Schneider are in Scope 3. So we realized that we need to tackle it. So first we do it for ourselves, and then we advise our clients. So what we have done ourselves is we launched a project called the Zero Carbon Project, which basically means that the top 1,000 suppliers that we have, we want to reduce their emissions by 50% by 2025, which was pretty ambitious when we set it 5 years ago.
Very soon.
Very soon. And we set it 5 years ago. By the end of last year, we had reduced it by 27% already. So we are well on course to reach somewhere closer to our target. Now, of course, it's easier said than done because, say, 10 to 15% of our suppliers are large corporations. But then you talk about SMEs, you talk about small and medium-sized enterprises, and that's where the fun starts. That's where we realize that, okay, we need to do a lot more. So we've been working on awareness. We're working on education. We have been helping them to do reporting on their carbon data. Data has been very important in that. Data management has been very important. We see that most of the time SMEs struggle with data, so we're helping them with that through some platforms and some carbon tools and things like that. Lastly, what we also do, we launched ourselves because we have a consulting and advisory arm of Schneider, which is advising other clients on how they can decarbonize their supply chain. So we have worked with a lot of other industries to move the needle. Sustainability, especially on supply chain decarbonization, this is a team sport. So you cannot do it alone. You need to have advanced level of collaboration. So what we have done is for example, for the semiconductor industry, we got the top 6 or 7 players together. They have more or less similar supplier base, and we worked with them to decarbonize their value chain, to move them toward more greener sources of energy, to help them with their data management. We have a program called Catalyze. This is for the semiconductor industry that we launched a couple of years ago. Then we have a program for the pharmaceutical industry as well that we launched, which is helping their suppliers to decarbonize. So we've been launching certain programs with certain segments to make sure that we're helping our clients decarbonize as well.
And you mentioned such a near-term goal. I have to ask you Mark's question from the last panel. Do you find that setting targets, even if you might not make it or the companies you're advising might not make it, are they great catalysts and instigators, or is it more important to focus on targets that you actually are going to meet?
Depends on the leadership. So of course, from our leadership, we have set ambitious targets. But I can tell you, as an organization, we are also incentivized to meet those targets. So in our short-term incentive plans of the whole, all the employees, especially the leadership, we have a weightage of 20% or 25% to be able to meet those targets. So of course, it is engaging your employees to make sure that you're moving there, and setting ambitious targets is part of the game plan.
Another one of the big topics that just came up was around the challenges in this region in particular, and the amount of work that needs to be done in APAC. So Chartsiri, I would love to hear, what role is the bank playing in Thailand's broader sustainability transition, particularly as you're thinking about financing around renewable energy?
In Thailand, the central bank has been working, the Bank of Thailand has been working with the commercial banks to come up with the commitment for this sustainability, which in 2021 we have moved on that front, and then and subscribe to the commitment of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, then specific sectors are now being considered and look at how can we move forward in the decarbonization. So 3 to 4 sectors will be working over the next 18 to 24 months among banks, together with the central bank, to see how to work with our customers and move accordingly in that direction. For Bangkok Bank, we also provide different financing programs, Bloomberg Green, Renewable, and some other programs, including the transition finance, in order to help support our customers to move with certain interest promotion. At the same time, we also have certain measures that our customers have to be able to meet in order to achieve those targets, in order to help them move in that direction.
And then, Farrukh, tell us a little bit more broadly, looking across the region. I know you work with companies across different geographies. What are some of the challenges that are unique to this area?
Asia in general, if you look at the companies setting science-based targets, I was looking at the data, and 30% of the companies subscribing to science-based targets or setting science-based targets are from Asia. Now, this number has grown 4 times in the last 2 years, which means that, of course, more and more Asian companies are subscribing towards setting targets. But we have also got data which says that 94% of the companies have the targets, but half of them don't know how to get there.
Wow.
And I'm sure all of you in the room as well kind of relate to that. And this is where we believe we can step in and support, because we have experience ourselves, because we run a very large manufacturing footprint as well. But we can step in to support because we have been doing that for the last many years. So Asia, there's a lot happening on the whole ESG topic. But there are certain trends that we see. For example, urbanization is happening very rapidly. We see biodiversity is becoming a big topic in this region as well. Water scarcity is another topic. And these are some of the topics that we need to tackle together in a collaborative way. In terms of conservation, I know there's a lot of discussion going on ESG, but the conservation is another topic that we need to look at. And I see those are some of the key challenges in the region. And proud to say that, of course, we can step into support, but we already see a lot of momentum in the region from a lot of other players as well coming in and giving support to see what can be done.
Chartsiri, Farrukh mentioned a huge gap between goal setting and companies understanding how to get there. What role do you think that the finance industry can play in helping companies bridge that gap?
I think, first of all, the important part is to create the awareness, and also how to work closely with them, provide them with advice and also dialogue in order to help them shape their direction, especially in their planning process. And when they have new investment opportunities, how to move in that type of direction. We also provide certain type of additional loan for them for the digital technology, for the innovation and the green business, so that they also make those transitions with certain attractive terms and conditions to help them in that area. But yes, to create the greater awareness along this basis is important. And I think the government is also considering certain climate change act in order to make the disclosure a mandatory as well as also lead to the carbon trading and some other mechanisms that would also enable greater sustainability projects to take place.
And I must say, since we are sitting here in Singapore, Singapore is a very good example of how Singapore is moving the needle on the topic. Scope 1 and Scope 2 were mandatory. Scope 3 is going to get mandatory from 2026 as well in terms of disclosures. And I think Singapore is leading the way on a lot of renewable topic as well. So there is something that we can learn and a lot of other countries can learn as well and implement some of those strategies.
You both brought up my last risk I want to make sure that we talk about, which is around reporting and regulations. And so Chartsiri, I'd love to start with you. What challenges are you seeing from new ESG regulations and reporting? What challenges are they creating for banks and the financial sector?
Of course, it's a big challenge for us, and initially some of the common standards probably will be used, but eventually how can we go more into specific industry and specific companies? And I think that also takes time, as you correctly point out, how to get the customer move along that direction and also indicate certain indicators and at the same time action plan so that those targets can be achieved. And that also comes to your earlier question of how to make sure that the economics works as well with the ESG initiative.
And Farrukh, I love your thoughts particularly on CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. It's a big focus for global companies right now. How are you advising your clients around what they need to know with this in effect?
Absolutely. The pressure is intensifying. Governments are intensifying the pressure to hold the companies more accountable and get more transparency. I think CSRD is one of the key areas. We get a lot of queries coming on CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, and CS3D as well, which basically brings all the non-EU companies which are working in the EU or have some subsidiary in the EU. They bring them into the fold, and of course, over the next 4 or 5 years, it's going to be having a phased implementation. We estimate that 10,000 companies, non-EU companies, will be affected, and they will be required to do the reporting on CSRD over the next 3-4 years, and on CS3D as well. And we ourselves are going through that task on how to do about it, because CSRD talks about double materiality. And that's a big topic on how do you measure double materiality. Mm-hmm. And we ourselves are doing it today as a company, and we believe it's a difficult one. But then, of course, this is something where I'm sure a lot of other governments will also follow some of those compliance requirements, and they will implement them as well. And a lot of businesses over here as well will need support and help on how to get there. And we are supporting some companies. We're getting a lot of queries on this topic today. On compliance, this is becoming very, very important. On sustainability, you need to look at the transformation part of how you transform and change your company. But compliance is also forcing a lot of that at the same time.
I've asked you both a lot about risks, so I don't want to leave it on a risk note. I want to leave it on an opportunities note. So I'm going to ask you both the opposite question. As you've been thinking through all these risks, where do you think actually the biggest opportunities are for you, either for your companies or the companies you're advising or investors in the sustainability space? What opportunities are you most excited for, Chartsiri?
The initiative on the sustainability will lead to significant capital expenditure that will be taking place over the next 1 or 2 decades. And significant capital put in, this is also where how can banks can work closely with our customers accordingly, and how to optimize it so that they also generate good return on the investment, at the same time also meet the world standard on the sustainability. So this is quite an important part of how our people, the bank officers can work closely with our customers and then plan with them and move accordingly. It's a great opportunity. And also with the innovation in technology and the capabilities that also will increase their competitiveness so that keep them also more profitable and also in the leading position.
Farrukh, what's the big opportunity for you?
I don't want to sound philosophical, but, I believe every wall is a door. Mm-hmm. So something what we need to do is we need to look at it that, on sustainability, you need to collaborate together. Imagine a company having thousands of suppliers, manufacturers, customers. Everybody needs to come together and then only you will be able to get over the task, and that's an opportunity of collaboration. And I think traditional organizations who have not really moved forward in terms of collaboration, this is the great opportunity that you bring all your ecosystem together. You cannot win this without running the ecosystem all together, and I think the ecosystem needs to work together, and that's a great opportunity for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.